What up guys, welcome back to another video. We are going to break down the Earth2 white paper. So it's been 3 years in the making and here we are 24 hours since they dropped the white paper. We've been anticipating this for some time. I'm going to go through the white paper. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts, and I'm going to preface this by saying it's a fairly long video, but it's worth just breaking down the white paper and different aspects of what Earth2 is trying to be, and also introduce it to the newcomers that are wanting to potentially get into the game, invest, learn about the tokenomics, learn that this is a blockchain game, that you could potentially earn a lot of money. I know people get excited when we talk about money, but let's talk about Earth2. Let's talk about the white paper. Let's break it down. So Earth2 is a concept for a second virtual Earth. It is aspiring to be the metaverse, in which you can buy land which is on a one-to-one scale of the virtual Earth. So right now, these environments currently have the ability to detect, mine, and produce digital assets. Remember, digital assets on the blockchain. They can be bought, owned, and sold, and in the near future, interactable and playable inside a 3D world. So again, I remind you of Ready Player One, where you can augment your reality or get into virtual reality and you can interact with 3D models and your 3D world. Their plan is to create a pristine one-to-one scale interactive 3D Earth based on the concept, which will give people a place to participate in, build an alternate reality around the physical existence. In November 2020, they initially released the grid, which we all know because a lot of people laughed at us and said, why are you buying virtual land in these 10 by 10 squares, right? Nonetheless, a lot of the OGs did rush and we bought a massive amount of land, and we've seen our land prices increase. Sure, a lot of people will say, you haven't cashed out anything. What are you talking about? These are paper gains. But a lot of people have actually cashed out and made tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars cashing out their virtual land for real money. And they've essentially flipped land. Earth2 has since grown to become the outright largest virtual land registry in the world. And I have a note here. It's interesting because this land registry kind of reminded me about what's happening in crypto right now and blockchain technology right now, which is the tokenization of real world assets onto the blockchain. There's been talks of trying to tokenize or wanting to tokenize gold so that anyone can own a portion of gold. Just like we made paper money, fiat paper money, because no one wanted to lug around gold, right? We're not going to swap my billions of gold for your farm. It's just ridiculous. So we made paper money. Now, essentially what we're doing is democratizing the ability to own certain assets. Tokenization, for example, in real estate, if you don't have enough money to buy a house, for example, what people have talked about, and this is very hypothetical and this is very future vision, is they can tokenize an actual real life asset, which is a house, and they can create 1,000 tokens and they can resell those tokens to retail investors. And then you, me, your mum, your dad, your family, your friends, the random stranger down the street can own a portion of that house as a token. Obviously, there's regulations, restrictions, governance, and who makes what decisions and how it all works. But the idea of having a virtual land registry just reminds me of this idea of tokenization of real world assets, which I think is slowly happening. I think that's a really exciting place. Creating purpose and value inside a virtual Earth. Similar to our virtual world, people can reserve their own land inside this second Earth and begin mining Ether. And we'll talk about Ether, which is a transformable and high utility disinflationary ERC token 20 called Essence. We're going to go through this later when we talk about the tokenomics and everything else. As a quick side note, I had to kind of research what disinflationary means, because I'll be honest and put my hand up and say I wasn't quite sure. Disinflation is a temporary slowing of the pace of price inflation. So inflation is when the cost of certain items goes up, the cost of living rising for nearly everyone in the world. That's due to inflation. So they're introducing a mechanism where inflation will still occur, the price of an item will still increase, but the rate at which it increases will slow. So it is an ERC20 token called Essence, ERC20, which is the native protocol for Ethereum. So we will be buying and selling Essence on the Ethereum blockchain. I do have my thoughts around that. We'll be using Uniswap for that. Not a fan of Ethereum and gas fees and whatnot. I think there are a couple of blockchains they could have used, such as Wax, such as Solana, even Polygon. Depending on the location and tier type, land inside Earth2 also has the ability to detect and mine up to 32 different type of resources. So keep that in mind. It's really interesting that each land tile currently has 32 different types of resources, and I think I can only imagine that they're going to expand that once they've really developed the game mechanics. Therefore, the ability to build, create, or produce something inside Earth2 will be the result of either player time, ownership, management, trading, acquisition, effort, or a mixture of all 6. You're going to have to put some work in to play this game in order to get the most out of it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and to be fair, it's probably not my cup of tea either. I'm a fairly simple guy. There's a reason why these AFK games and, simple click games, are very popular, because people kind of don't want to think too much. But there are also a group of people out there that really enjoy this in-depth game mechanics as well, and this caters to those people. Now, the metaverse. It is impossible to ignore the fact that the metaverse space is an exciting one, with the growing number of reasons as to why reputable companies like JP Morgan are claiming it will become a $1 trillion market opportunity in yearly revenues over the next decade. So think about that. We're talking about next decade, next 10 years. We're 3 years into the Earth2 journey. We're talking about the next decade. So remember, this is a slow burn, but if you believe in the product and you believe in the team and you believe what they've provided up until this point, I think it's worth sticking out. I put a note here. What is the metaverse to you, and how do you see it becoming a reality? You have Meta, Facebook. They've tried to create a metaverse, and I'm sure they still are. Big people like Tesla, I have no doubt they're also trying to create a metaverse, because Elon Musk once famously said that he believes we'll be all living in our computers before we even live on Mars. So, you have all these other Chinese platforms that are building their own version of a metaverse, and I think a lot of big tech companies are working on becoming the first major platform to open the floodgates to a metaverse platform. So it's interesting. What do you think the metaverse would look like, should look like? Is it a scary place? Is it kind of a dystopian world, or is it going to be a utopian world where we can all escape? Now, Earth2 brings an instant familiarity to the concept of an alternate digital reality. And I wrote that it is familiar because we're developing a second Earth. We're not developing a second random planet, a second fantasy world that's extremely out there. No, what we have, or what they have developed, is a replica of what we are already familiar with. And we'll talk about biomes, we'll talk about topography and environments later on. This will be a long-term project. And again, referencing what JP Morgan said, it is probably the next decade where we'll see a fully fledged metaverse be produced and created there. So they've spent the last 3 years building during a bear market, and this will be a long-term multi-year project focused on creating the one-to-one scale of virtual Earth, which they envision. They will allow us to play, own, survive, craft, mine, trade, build, battle, experience, learn, socialize, escape, and much more. Remember when they first came out, there was a lot of skepticism around their ambition. We had a lot of YouTubers that came out and said E2 was a scam. Why are people buying fake land? You're buying virtual land. What the hell? The concept was very foreign. These same YouTubers also don't believe in NFTs, don't believe that NFTs have any intrinsic value. Indeed, there's an argument for that, but there's also an argument for the technology that underpins NFT, which is the tokenization of digital assets and proving ownership. Defying skeptics who doubted its feasibility, they showcased their platform at the biggest global gaming event of the year in GDC 2024, and we'll talk about this later down on the track. Now, I just looked at some stats. So in 2024, GDC Game Developers Conference hosted nearly 30,000 registered attendees. It featured over 1,000 speakers across 730 sessions, workshops, roundtable discussions, in addition to networking opportunities. Over 300 top game industry companies exhibited their latest innovations over 5 days. So Shane took E2 and the team over there, showcased their wares, and just look at the numbers. This was an amazing opportunity for them to showcase what they've been working on. Another thing that I thought was really good was, since launching the concept in November 2020, Earth2 business model has been 100% self-sufficient. We've not raised any outside capital from VCs, although we had many opportunities to do so. No, they did not raise any capital from VCs. I don't know if Shane and a small select group invested their own capital in it. The community really rallied around this idea of owning virtual land and funded it, right? He says that not all VC capital is bad. However, we know that sometimes VC capitals can produce design conflicts. You know, they could influence the roadmap, the direction of the game, the design of the game, how it looks, how it feels. There's always timeline pressures when it comes to VCs because it's their money. They want to see return on investment. And they obviously also sometimes want the potential lion's share of the profits. So when we talk about tokenomics and invested tokens for developers and for VCs and whatnot, usually when you have VC backings, they want the lion's share of the profits. And it's good to know that there is no VC backing, not at this point anyway. E2 avoided any official ICOs or ITOs, instead prioritizing development of the platform. Therefore, when the Essence token launches, the vast majority of tokens will be those that have been mined by players from their land. So that's really interesting. The ICO, which is initial coin offering, suggesting that those that provided funding would have issued with a percentage of the coins. Like I said before, there was no ICO or there was no ITO. ITO stands for initial token offering, and the token in this context is Essence. Now, the difference between the coin is a currency, cryptocurrency, and the token is the utility token that is used within the game. So there was neither ICO or ITO. Instead of closing our doors with the goal of releasing more robust product in 5 to 10 years, our approach to building the Earth2 Metaverse has been to develop and release core features via our website as we make progress with the 3D world development. I see this as both positive and negatives, and I wrote some notes here. The positives of like not closing the team off for 5 to 10 years, right? They could have released a proof of concept in November 2020 and said, hey guys, buy our virtual land, help us kind of fund this development, but we're going to close off for the next 5 to 10 years and you won't hear much from us, but we'll produce something. So instead, they took us along the journey. And the pros with that is obviously community engagement. There's a lot of OGs and a lot of people fighting in what they believe and supporting in what they believe. There's content creators, there's people that have made Twitter accounts, websites, blog posts, a lot of supporters out there. And that community engagement is due to the fact that they didn't close off their development during this period of time. There's a Discord and that's popping off. Community may also influence design direction, which is also good because, you know, obviously this is being built for them. They are our customers. So it's good that there is community engagement and community influence in the design. And also there's continued funding because as we will read later on, there's skins, there's blueprints, there's side joys. This might be all foreign to you if you're new, but you know there's continued funding as they release game mechanics as the journey continues. The negatives to that is very similar to what I said. Community engagement can really be bad because if the community feels, or certain parts of the community feel like there hasn't been any development or any progress, then you're going to get poor engagement. And in fact, you might get people calling it a scam, YouTubers making videos, you know, blasting it and saying negative things. Similar with game design, you can get certain parts of the community wanting something, dev group caving in and creating a game mechanic that doesn't work. So you can get that as well. There's positive and cons to this approach, but I think they've done it really well and done it right in opening up their journey and allowing us to kind of follow through with them. Let's talk about AR and VR, augmented reality elements and support. So they are planning down the track to have augmented reality elements and they're planning to support VR. Something like this obviously calls out for it. If you're going to talk about building a metaverse platform, then you can't not talk about VR. You can't talk about augmented reality. Now, it's initially going to be launched on PC. Long term, they're looking at AR and VR. So AR continues to grow, and I was first introduced to proper AR with Pokemon Go. We all love Pokemon Go. If you're my era, then you love Pokemon Go. I am turning 40 this year. So I used to remember waking up early in the morning and recording Pokemon series on a VHS tape so we can keep and just re-watch over and over again. But Pokemon Go, the app that introduced AR globally, and now there's a lot of like AR popular games on mobile, such as the Harry Potter, NBA, Jurassic Park, and all these things. And not to mention AR glasses is really popping off with Apple glasses, Meta smart glasses with the Ray-Bans, which I have. Then you have the Google smart glasses, the X-Real Air, where if you wear these glasses and you plug it in your phone, you literally have like a 200-inch or 160-inch screen of your desktop in your field of view. So a lot of exciting things happening with AR and VR, and I imagine they're preparing for this expansion. Some numbers here: 650,000 plus players, sold over 120 million land tiles, $22 million paid out to players. There's 200 million plus essence has been mined from owning tier 1 and tier 2 land. 180,000 unique essence holders. $10 million worth of peer-to-peer trades, like secondary trades on the secondary market. 900,000 social media followers. 65,000 highest single property trade. And if we can all remember, it was July 3rd, 2021. A South Korean player bought the Statue of Liberty for $65,000. A huge percentage of total players from South Korea, USA, Italy, UK, Austria, Germany, and Canada. They make up 60% plus of the player base. So there's some statistics, some awesome numbers for you there. So what is E2 V1? E2 V1 or Earth2 version 1 is the starting point for Earth2 flagship product, a seamless real-time 510 million kilometers squared one-to-one scale persistent virtual planet Earth accurately reflects real-world topology and geographical locations. To achieve this goal, Earth2 is developing their own Earth2 engine. It's a proprietary engine that sits on top of the Unity 3D. The Earth2 engine is being designed to deliver high-performance, massive scale, 64-bit real-time rendering and physics in both close-up and distant views. Now, I don't know what all that means in particular. I'm not a tech geek. The fact that they're creating their own Earth2 proprietary engine, I think is an awesome thing. So this is their own in-house Earth2 engine. So they have a terrain renderer as well, and it's responsible for real-time semi-photorealistic terrain and environment rendering that takes place on a massive scale, delivering an immersive experience along with extraordinary view distances. And I wrote that this has to be with draw distances. We don't want popping up of assets coming into our view, poorly rendered artifacts. So as we fly through Earth2, we don't want things to just randomly pop up because of the poor rendering and the poor draw distances. So obviously they're working on their engine. From what I've seen anyway, it looks really good and it performs really well. You can see all these videos. You can honestly see all these videos on the Earth2 platform, you know, real-time rendering as they're flying through the different biomes and everything else. You can watch the videos to see that. A lot of people are saying, oh, you just pre-rendered all this. This is just a cinematic. No, it wasn't. Accuracy on a global scale, and this is what I appreciate with what Earth2 is doing. They are collecting data, and the data has been accurately measured for topography, the height of water, the sea levels. They're even at the point where they're able to correctly control the flow of streams and rivers based on real-world data. Height map. You know, they're not just making an Earth2. Here you go, here's the world. We'll call it Earth2. It is what it is. We'll throw a bunch of trees, a bunch of rivers, blah, blah. No, it's accurate in terms of its topography, its biomes, its resources, its height maps, its sea levels, all that. They're trying to make it as accurate as possible. So, biome generation system. Much like the real world, biomes are generally spread over large areas based on climate patterns, vegetation, wildlife, and soil types. So already you can see what they're considering when they're creating this. They're looking at climate, they're looking at vegetation, fauna, flora, soil, all this. Biomes would encompass elements like snow, forest, foliage, grass, specifying coverage, height, color. So and NPC movements such as animal behavior, storms, and natural disasters. So each biome will have certain elements within that biome, and already they have 250 biome variations, and that's amazing. The Earth2 engine automatically accounts for seamless transitions between biomes so they can blend naturally at points where they overlap. Some example biomes you may expect to find are arid deserts, volcanic, flooded grasslands, tropical savannas, subtropical rainforests, alpine savannas, temperate broadleaf, mangrove, arctic tundra, temperate steep steppe, polar ice caps, and many others. So over 250 biomes that these guys have worked on. That is amazing. So it is a playable world. Players can spawn an avatar and interact with the world. Again, it's over 510 million kilometers square surface area. Now, you know, when AAA games release like Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto and all these games, right, we always look at the map and we'll look at, you know, the towns and the cities that we can especially explore. Imagine having a game where there's 510 kilometers squared of land that you can kind of just traverse. That is amazing. So they've also got a multiplayer system. For example, the system we developed would allow one player to be in London while another is in New York persistently at the same time on the same server at GDC, they talked about their partnership with Metagravity, and I hopped on Metagravity's website. Metagravity's hyperscale engine has solved the problem, solved old existing problems where when you join certain servers, you have to be split out. You and your friend have to join a certain server in order for you to play together. Metagravity have solved this problem. Existing new games can now scale to millions of concurrent users, AI and digital objects with ease and simplicity. This unlocks unprecedented creative possibilities, allowing for the development of truly boundless virtual worlds. So great partnership, Earth2, Metagravity, working on having millions of people on the same server. This is an aspirational thing. I don't know what it looks like, but I know that Metagravity has partnered with like Star Atlas and a few other games as well. Let's talk about the GDC 2024 conference. The reality is our team took a strong stance toward releasing actual in-engine footage of Earth2. Like I said before, guys, you can go on the Earth2 YouTube page, you can see it. Going against the trend of games typically using high quality pre-rendered cinematic videos to hype and promote a version of their product that doesn't really exist. Now you see this a lot, games where they release cinematics and you get duped into thinking this is the game because it looks amazing, CGI, computer graphics, but then it's not actually what it seems. And this happens a lot with mobile games. They kind of trick you into thinking this is what you're going to get, and then you download it, it's not that. Earth2 have gone against that trend, and they've only released in-game, in-engine footage, and that's something we definitely appreciate. What is land and the ecosim? People were buying land for using e-dollars, and each e-dollar was worth $1 US. And tier 1 land back in those early days were going for, like 10 cents, 50 cents, 20 cents. They were going for cents. The more popular the land was, the more people that bought in that land, obviously the algorithm, the program pump that the value of that land up. So you can expect somewhere in New York would be more valuable than somewhere in a rural town. And people were making tens of thousands of dollars just flipping these land tiles. And that was a huge deal back then. And that was a big driving force behind the funding, because Earth2 would get a transfer fee, a percentage cut of purchasers, and then secondary sales and secondary swaps. They would get a certain amount of e-dollars as well. Now, just like real life, we know land is really important. Land produces ether, which then transforms into essence, provides jewels and resources, but it is also where you would build and host mini games, where you would create your cities, where you would raid, have PvP experiences, produce e-commerce, and much more. So similar to what real life is, land is really valuable, and that's why they have tier 1 land, which is the most valuable, tier 2 and tier 3 lands are certain territories or states. Now, this is the first important point. There will be a supply cap of 250 million tier 1 and tier 2 land tiles. 225 million being directly purchasable as new land, 25 million tier 2 land tile reserved for tier 3 upgrades. So if you buy a tier 3 land, I believe you'll be able to upgrade it to a tier 2, and there's benefits in having a tier 1 land tile, and it all comes down to what you can do on those lands and how it produces kind of this form of passive income for you, which is the form of essence. So earth2.io/news/territories, and it'll give you a breakdown of what you can do on each tier of land. Now, in addition to the other utility land provides, it also detects resources in the form of occurrence units by the mentor and prospecting side droids. At this point, if you're new, you probably don't understand any of this. What's a mentor? What's a prospecting side droids? But I do encourage you to look it up, watch the other videos of other YouTubers out there talking about E2. These occurrence units can then be used to produce raw materials via an essence staking mechanism, which in turn opens the door to building the initial ecosim buildings, producing building blocks and advanced technology to build or create more advanced buildings or items. Okay, so let's talk about the nitty-gritty. Ether. Ether is an unstable, somewhat mysterious matter that evaporates from owned land inside Earth2. The more tier 1 land you have, the more ether you're gonna just naturally create from your land. What you then do is have a mentor on your land. Don't ask me what it is, just go Google it, look it up. It's a device on your land that detects this unstable ether, and then it allows you to transform it into Essence. Essence is the currency. But Ether is stable for the first 24 hours. Then after that, it becomes unstable, in which case it can be essentially stolen by other people through a raid gaming system. Now, what is Essence? A high utility disinflationary ERC20 utility token on the Ethereum blockchain. Nearly most of the actions that you would require to do in Earth2, I imagine, would need Essence. It is the currency, it is the utility token of this game, this metaverse, this platform. People will need Essence to craft power cells. Power cells will power things such as buildings, sidroids, which are drones, vehicles, city, devices, and I imagine much, much more. Players will also need to stake Essence in order to generate raw materials, opening up the gateway to build and trade. So again, Essence is really important. Additional Essence may be used to supercharge production, in which case the supercharged amount will be subject to a burn mechanism. The 50% of Essence used to supercharge is burned. So this is the first example of a burning mechanism that they've introduced in Earth2. We're also excited to confirm that at some point in the future, Essence may also be used to trade items on the platform, much like users use e-dollars today. So when they release skins for civilians, you can use your e-dollars to buy them. They imagine in the future, Essence may be also used to trade. Instead of using your e-dollars, you can just use Essence to trade. Adaptive value of Essence. Now, this is fairly confusing and I had to kind of narrow it down. Many aspiring Web3 projects make the mistake of tying token quantity to essential products, items, or commodities, which are prerequisites for users to have any meaningful experience. This approach results in hyperinflated prices that may make for great headlines when super early token holders decide to splurge, but can subsequently result in blocking the scalability and growth of the project due to the establishment of exorbitant and unrealistic prices that new users face when they want to get involved or become part of the ecosystem. Remember back in 2021 when Axie Infinity was popping off, this NFT game, the entry price to get into this crypto blockchain game was around $900 for something decent. And the premise of Axie Infinity was you buy some Axies, which were these little monsters, and you would battle them with other monsters and other people, and you would earn Smooth Love Potion, SLP. SLP was worth a certain amount of dollars. You would earn them by beating these other monsters, and then you can kind of sell them on the crypto market and earn real life money. You earn SLP, then you swap it for USDC or USDT or whatever it is, and you swap it into your fiat currency. Now, the entry level to that was 900 USD to buy 3 decent Axie Infinities. What they're saying here is they don't want the entry level to be that expensive. So it'll work on a sliding scale. So what I understand this is various game mechanics actions will have an internal cost locked to the fiat dollar. My kind of breakdown is this: various game mechanics, various things that you must do or need to do within the game is locked to a fiat dollar amount. And that fiat dollar amount will never change. It's a percentage of what Essence is worth at the time. This is what I imagine. So regardless of what the market value of Essence is, on that day, the certain task will have a lock cost that works off a sliding scale of the value of Essence. You know, they say that you need 2 Essence to power up a sidroid. Well, what if 2 Essence on a certain day was worth 200 USD? Obviously, no one would be able to afford a power cell to power their sidroid. So I imagine certain game mechanics will be locked, will be price locked, and it will not fluctuate with the price of Essence. This is what I imagine anyway. This is the only way that you can get mass adoption, because if you can imagine, if this game gets really, really popular and the token just spikes and goes parabolic through the roof, you're not going to get many people being able to do things within the game because it costs so much. So let's talk about jewels. You can use these jewels to slot into your land, and essentially they kind of boost production of whatever your land is producing. To date, approximately 69 million base level tier 1 jewels have been collected. And essentially, if you own tier 1 land, you can log in every day and you can collect your jewels. The total cap number of discoverable tier 1 jewels is 150 million jewels. And then I guess it will just be circulated within the marketplace. There's a chance of creating a brilliant jewel when you craft jewels. And brilliant jewels and the quality of the jewels obviously give you boosts and buffs depending on where you slot them. If you slot them in a land, it probably boost the production of that land. If you slot it into a Sidroid, it produces the rating or the amount of ether your droids collect, something along those lines. Now let's quickly touch on Sidroids. Sidroids is what you use to prospect resources and raid other people's land. And if you raid other people's land, there's opportunity for you to steal their ether. And again, ether transforms into essence, which is money. The process of creating a first generation Sidroid is fixed at 2.5 essence, largely due to the fact that first gen Sidroids have the ability to recoup their cost via successful raids. So think about this, right? If you were new to the game and you wanted to start raiding in order to earn essence, you have to sacrifice 2.5 essence to create your first Sidroid. But imagine the price of essence was $50, right? 50 USD. Now, a lot of people may think, well, I'm going to spend all this money to create a Sidroid and I don't have that type of money. So I don't know if they will cap this or change the game mechanic or whatever it is. But if you can imagine, if the price of essence really pops off, which, look, I don't think it will straight away, but if it does, then the entry price will be pretty steep for people depending on what fiat currency, what country you're in. Civilians, let's talk about civilians. There's currently 3 types of civilians: ether reckoners, Sidroid technicians, and raid commanders, all of which have a maximum supply of 500,000 each, and they essentially assist in the automation of the raiding process. Now, 500,000, that's not much. If you think about it, it might be a good idea to start creating civilians, right? Start creating them, because there's only a max supply of 500,000. Once that is maxed out, you're going to have to buy and sell civilians off the secondary market. And what can they go for? We don't know yet. So there's markets within markets here, guys. You got to think about that. This is some of the game mechanics around sustaining your civilians. You have to give them a red energy. You get red energy from conflict type activities such as raiding. So I believe that you need to give red energy, I believe it's once a week, to sustain your civilians. And again, civilians, what do you want civilians? They automate the process of collecting ether and raiding and everything else. So I imagine you don't have to go in and click every day or something like that. I'm not too sure. I don't have any Sidroids. I don't have any civilians because, like I said, I've been out of the loop for a bit. Obviously, E2 minigames is something that's going to be big on the platform. I imagine it's going to be something much more awesome, much more cooler than Roblox. I only say Roblox because I play Roblox with my sons. But we know how many games are on Roblox, like very simple games that these kids play, and how much is Roblox worth? Like billions and billions of dollars, right? We want to eventually be able to have a platform where we build mini games on here as well. They're looking at introducing other game mechanics such as rifle blasters, rocket launchers, grenades, flying machines, boats, vehicles, races and whatnot. And eventually, obviously, their long-term aspiration is to allow people to build their own mini games. If you guys don't know, maybe you do know, Roblox, people build games, build storyline games, and they allow other people to buy certain things within those mini games to give them an advantage. And you'd be amazed at how much money like these kids sink into these games. There's a game that me and my sons play. In Break-In Story, it's a fairly simple story-based, linear-based game with multiple endings, but you can buy a certain character with Robux and you can kind of essentially hack the game. You can be better than everyone else, and kids will spend money on this. And it's a game that someone has built, and this game has had over 10s and 20s and like thousands of plays. So you can only imagine the amount that these games are bringing in. Let's talk about broadcasting. Broadcasting is pretty much ad revenue. In order to be part of this ad revenue program, I'm just going to jump to the bottom here. You need to have a relationship with Earth2, and that's similar to the YouTube partner program where you have to meet a certain criteria and whatnot. And in order to broadcast, then you need to craft a broadcasting device inside a mentor on your land. And again, you'll use Essence for that. You'll use occurrence units for that. The higher the discovery tier level, the more efficient it is broadcasting and the less Essence required to power the device. and deliver the ads. And again, to power the device, I imagine you need essence, you need power cells, and all the other good stuff. For example, a D1 crafted broadcasting device might return a 25% bonus on consumption, meaning that if $1 worth of essence was consumed, you'd at least get a $1.25 of ad revenue. Depending on the level of your broadcasting device, you get boosted and buffs. So in order to get a D9 broadcasting device, obviously you're going to have to invest quite a bit of essence, a bit of discovery, a bit of experimentation in order to find the recipe for a D9 broadcasting device. And it also may be randomized in terms of luck as well, because if you found the recipe to create a D9 broadcasting device, then everyone would have one, right? Everyone would have 200 boosts in ad revenue. So I imagine there's an element of failure rate as well. And skins is really big. And I bring it back to Fortnite. I bring it back to all these games where you can have and buy skins. Again, I know it's really childish, but if you hop onto Roblox, you can see their marketplace for skins. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Not to mention when you partner up with celebrities, when you partner up with influence, you partner up with all these people to create their own skins, limited edition, NFT skins. This market is huge. And Earth2 will be creating its own IP, and also they'll allow you to create your own skin through their blueprint system as well. Sorry guys, I know this is a really long video. I'm kind of just trying to blast through this as quickly as possible. There's holo buildings, which we played around with already. It's a very interesting game mechanic, and we've seen people create amazing looking buildings already. And you can buy these blueprints of what buildings people have created, and you can really just deck out and decorate your city. So, this is an interesting point here. User-to-user holo building trading system is so advanced it can track joint ownership of combined digital assets and accurately distribute royalties for every ongoing sale on the secondary market. So this reminded me of like NFTs and putting in the smart contract that if someone buys my holo building blueprint and then sells it later on down the track, I will earn a percentage of that sale price as essence in perpetuity. I will earn royalties on my IP, my intellectual property, for the rest of the life of this game, of this platform. Again, that's really cool. Withdrawal system. I think they said they've paid out over 22 million USD through the withdrawal system. When I withdrew a certain amount of fiat, it was through Revolut. I'm not sure if they still use that, but they obviously have a system. I can confirm that because I have withdrawn money out of that. Now we've made it guys. Let's talk about the tokenomics, what everyone wants to know. Tokenomics. Essence will become disinflationary ERC20 utility token on the Ethereum blockchain. I don't mind Ethereum. I'm not the hugest fan, only because I've been scarred by massive gas fees when transferring transactions, and just any transaction that happens on the Ethereum blockchain requires gas, and gas can be really expensive depending on the miners and how congested the platform is. And I kind of just don't like that idea. Okay, there's blockchains out there that are much cheaper. Polygon, which is layer 2 on Ethereum, is much cheaper. You know, Solana is so much cheaper. And I understand they're using Ethereum because it's one of the best, most secure blockchains out there. It doesn't really go down. I understand that, but yeah, the gas fees is always a nuisance. There's a 1 billion token supply cap. So the majority of these 1 billion tokens will be mined over time by landowners. Most of the 1 billion will be assigned to the game, which is great. Each time an Essence token is mined, a smaller amount of Essence is unlocked in the Earth2 treasury, gradually providing access to funds the Earth2 team requires in order to build, scale, and market. So remember that, guys. The more Essence that is mined in-game, the more is released from the treasury. They say a small amount. I don't know what the percentage amount is, but it's a small amount that gets released from treasury, which gives Earth2 team access to the finances they need to continue developing the game. Now, there is a halving mechanism as well, which is the disinflationary mechanisms. Again, disinflationary meaning that inflation will still occur. The cost of prices of items within the game will still increase, but because it's disinflationary, the increase in that price will be slowed. So once we mine 500 million Essence, the inflation will be halved. But then when we hit 750 million, Again, it'll be halved. 875 million will be halved. At each halving event, the ether spawn rate, mineable ether for each respective land tier type, will reduce by 50%. We don't know how long it will take for us to mine 1 billion. Everyone wants to know when the token will be launched. They said that it will be launched, I think, May. You will need to connect a MetaMask wallet to your Earth2 account in order to access Uniswap and transfer Essence from Uniswap over to the platform. All Essence tokens that appear in the player profile when logged into Earth2 will be stored in a default wallet for the ecosystem. So the default wallet, I imagine, is like the in-game wallet, like the wallet on the platform. What you most likely have to do is go to Uniswap, swap your wrapped ether for Essence, then transfer that Essence onto your MetaMask wallet. And then you can transfer it onto the in-game wallet. When you log in, it will detect that you have a MetaMask. Now, gas fees, again, will incur when you swap your wrapped ether for Essence. Players will be able to lodge a request to transfer their Essence token to the wallet they have successfully linked to the Earth2 account using two-factor authenticator. This request will be batched and reviewed by our accounting team to ensure the player withdrawing the tokens has acquired them legitimately. So when you withdraw your Essence to your MetaMask wallet, I imagine what that means. And my question here is, does this mean there will be a turnaround period for batch reviews? Now, this is interesting that from a legal standpoint and for a number of other reasons, Earth2 will not be providing a liquidity pool. So as you can appreciate, this is a global game and people will need to use, what's the South Korean currency? I have no idea. That's probably really bad, but people will need an on-ramp for their fiat currency. So I imagine they will convert their fiat currency to wrapped ether and then use wrapped ether to then buy Essence, but there needs to be a liquidity pool for people to actually buy Essence. And they're saying that the dev team, the Earth2 company, will not be providing a liquidity pool, and that is for players to provide liquidity pool. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm like a crypto expert, but there is advantages in providing liquidity, because if you provide liquidity, you get a certain percentage of the fees that are associated with providing that liquidity, and you can make a lot of money as well. So the initial supply at the point of launch, we anticipate 300 million tokens to be in circulation. Remember, the cap is 1 billion. Allocation, 65% mined from land. This is for player base. 10% for rewards, again for player base. So that's pretty good. So like 75% will go in game. The rest, 25%, to treasury. When I initially saw that, I was like, treasury, how much are the devs getting? Web3 industry is still in its infancy, and if projects are to thrive, there must be a level of freedom to adjust when needed. For this reason, the treasury is a central multi-purpose wallet Earth2 will utilize for various needs, including, but not limited to, development, supporting the project, marketing, promotion. We already know this yellow energy, which they're paying out to content creators, cost, team allocations, liquidity pools when and if required from future potential exchanges, advisors, mods. Okay, at this moment, they're saying they're not providing a liquidity pool, but should they then be listed on centralized exchanges like Binance, then they will have to have funding for liquidity pools. Now, I'll let you guys go through this timeline. We are here. Earth2 white paper releases March 2024. Q2, Essence ERC token will launch on Uniswap, decentralized exchange. We'll see if we can get it listed on any other exchanges, and we'll see where it goes. I am going to predict that Essence will be cheap. Okay, I'm guessing it will be like 2 cents on launch. Initial Earth2 version 1 pre-alpha closed testing occurs on Q2 as well. Q3 alpha possibly with pre-alpha, possibly with early multiplayer support, and then broadcasting device crafting. So by Q3 2024, we'll have that kind of more information about broadcasting device crafting, which is the ad revenue mechanic of Earth2. So they are my thoughts on Earth2 and the white paper. There's a lot to digest there, guys. And as Shane said, this is the slimmed down version. I can only imagine how crazy the full extended version is. But I wish you guys the best on this amazing journey. We've lived 3 years from Earth2. I will raise my hand and say I was one of those people that fell off the bandwagon because I just felt like there was slow progress. But with the release of the white paper and everything that they've kind of summarized, having read it like maybe 2 or 3 times now, you can see the incremental progresses they have made, and that's something that we need to celebrate for Earth2, the company, Shane, and the people that are working behind the scenes tirelessly to bring us this metaverse, the people's metaverse. So with that said, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.